Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are refining and redefining the sales game by equipping you with the tools you need to differentiate yourself in the marketplace.
Listening to the podcast is only going to get you so far. Why not take your game to the next level? Check out Power Producer Basecamp on killingcommercial.com today.
Tactical skills that'll help you provide deliverable value to your clients and prospects.
Want to have the sweet swag that we send out from the Power Producers podcast for your clients and employees? Check out policyt.com today.
And action items that you can provide to take your prospects and clients to the next level.
Want to create an online presence but don't know how to start? Check out crushingcontent.com. It's done for you, so all you have to do is show up.
This is Power Producer Shop Talk, production redefined. Are you ready to feel the power?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Power Producers Shop Talk. We are in session 2 of our How Do You Prepare for the Fourth Quarter series that we recorded based on a killer call that I did for the private Killing Commercial community just this last week. If you want to up your game, this is good information for you to sit back and reflect and get out of the doldrums of summer and ready to have the best fourth quarter yet. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you, if you really want to up your game, make sure you check out the new Power Producer Basecamp, and you can go find all of the information out about that at killingcommercial.com, and there is a menu tab at the top. Now, I'm not telling you pricing or any offers because by the time you hear this, that may be over, but if you're lucky enough, we're still running our promotional offer stack with promotional pricing for a limited time. Go check that out. You won't be sorry you did. Now, let's get after it with session 2 of getting ready for the fourth quarter. The next thing is you got to figure out where your time is best spent. You know, I give you guys a lot of quick and dirty stuff. You want to use that as your starting point, but every agency in every geography is going to be different. You know, and I'll give you another example. It's going to go back to leading with comp, but, you know, this is a metric that I look at. For me, that's where we should spend our time. A lot of agencies don't do it here, and the ones who do don't really do a great job, but there's so much opportunity, and I can measure that opportunity. And, you know, if you've been around for a while, you've heard me use the statistic before that if we go in and I pull a list of service contractors that are $25,000 or more in revenue to the agencies, so they have to be a good enough size, you know, for this to make sense. But for me, for you, it could be a different number. But I know based on doing this for 6 or 7 years in the firm now, that for every 100 mods that I pull in that demographic, 40 of them will be 1 or higher every single time. It does not vary by more than 5% plus or minus ever. So think about this for a second. Why wouldn't I spend my time doing that? Why wouldn't I spend my time calling those people? If I only pulled 100 a month and 40 of them are 1 or higher, which are the absolute best opportunities for me to schedule a first appointment, which, by the way, if you don't want to spend $600 pulling those mods because you think it's a lot of money, then you just don't believe in your own ability to go in and get the meeting booked and then ultimately walk them through the buyer's journey and close the business. Because I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anywhere else where you're going to be able to buy a potential of at least $1 million in revenue opportunity for your agency for $600. That's how the numbers work. If you're 25,000 or more in revenue and I'm getting 40 of you, that's $1 million and it costs me 600 to get that information. I will take that bet 10 out of 10 times. So figure out where your metrics are and where the financials make sense for you. But even if you're only going to do a subset of that, say you only want to pull 25, well, that's fine. You know that on 25, you're probably going to get 10 of them that are going to be 1 or higher if those numbers hold for your area. But make sure you're investing in the areas where it makes the most sense. If you're going out and doing marketing drops and you've been doing marketing drops for 4 months and you've gotten 3 appointments off of doing that, and you've done everything you can to tweak it, it's just that it's not where your time is well spent, but you can get on the phones and book 3 appointments a day, Quit doing marketing drops. Just because I said that it's a great way to do business doesn't mean it's the best way for you. You have to monitor your own results and tailor your plan for how you're going to close the year out around what you've gotten done so far. For many of you, it's get off your butt and go out and start knocking on doors to begin with. But if you're out doing it and it's not working, or if you're dialing and it's not working, figure out how you're going to spend your day and tweak it to what is working and spend more time doing that. And I know that seems very, very logical and common sense, but people just don't think about that stuff. They keep like machines over and over and over again. And the industry is somewhat to blame for that, because we're notorious for knowing how many calls you need to make to get a first appointment, how many first appointments you need to run to get a meeting, to present your actual work product, how many of those you need to do to get a closed deal. So we reverse it all the way up to the beginning, which is how we start your business plan. But the thing with that single sheet is you should be updating that, maybe not every month, but every quarter at a bare minimum, to reflect your real-time results for where you need to be to hit your numbers at the end of the year. The other thing is we've got to figure out how we can balance our renewals and our reshops, because it's not like every single one of us is going to go out and we're brand new in the business and we don't have business on the books we have to tend to already. And that's another piece that we don't really talk about often enough, but there's an investment that has to be made in your existing book to make sure you don't lose an account, because what's the point of writing 25 in revenue if you lose 50? You have to have a strategic process for retention in place in order to make sure you're keeping those businesses on the books. And with the market being what it is right now, it's becoming increasingly difficult to do that. Everybody's shopping. We know that. We know that they're going to have people whispering in their ear, and God forbid those people get an audience, because there's a potential for them to come in and be able to take an account or a piece of an account from you. The other thing you need to be thinking about with regard to that is cross-selling your book. Like, how many times do we look at our book and we've not talked to them about life insurance? We've not talked to them about the buy-sell agreement or Keyman and how to have a life insurance conversation around it. We're not talking to them about cyber. We're not talking to them about D&O, EPLI, and fiduciary, because these are conversations that producers aren't comfortable having because they perceive they don't know the coverages enough, or they perceive they're going to be viewed as trying to sell something when it's of their own benefit, not to the benefit of the client. Here's the problem with that. I can't speak for any other state, but I can tell you I have a duty to offer in the state of Florida. When I got my license, it was made evidently clear to me that we as an agent have a duty to offer. What does that mean? That means that it's my responsibility that if a prospect has an exposure for cyber, I need to make sure I'm offering them cyber. Not just cyber, but cyber at an adequate limit based on what their business does and the current environment. If I don't do that, I'm the one that's going to be held liable in the event of a claim, and it's going to be my E&O that responds as a result. So you have to think about things through those terms. And if you have a client that pushes back and says, oh, you're just trying to sell me more crap I don't need, you need to explain it to them that way. No, actually, as an agent licensed by the Department of Financial Services or whoever your licensing board is in your state, I have a duty to offer to you, because you'll have selective amnesia when the cyber claim comes. If I don't offer it to you and I don't get you to sign a rejection form, or more importantly, send me an email telling me, hey, by the way, I'm ripping this off of Ciara because she told me this in a claim that they actually had at their old agency. But have an email come to me, say, I know that you're recommending cyber and I understand that I have a risk, but I'm consciously making the decision that I'm going to reject coverage and know that that could open me up for a claim, and be very specific about it. I'm going to get hammered for that. And, the eye opener for us was when I had Zane from Pro Writers on the podcast a couple months ago, and he told us that the average cyber claim in the country right now is $4 million. Immediately, I start running through my mind, oh my goodness, how many $1 million cyber policies do we write? And it's literally every single one. Well, how do we come up with those? How do we come up with those limits? Because that's what they quote. We don't take the time to actually ask the business questions and calculate what we think it could be. The reality is I don't know that we would ever be able to offer an appropriate cyber limit because it's really difficult to quantify how far reaching it's going to be and the amount of financial damages associated. But if you know that the average is 4 and you've got documentation that says that's the case, and you offer them 1, 3, and 5, and you let them reject down to whatever it is they want to buy, guess what? You don't have to worry about getting sued because you did your part at that point, or at least you shouldn't worry about getting sued because you did your part at that point. But cross-selling, I think, is an opportunity for almost every agency that I talk to every single week. You set it and you forget it. People reject the coverage the first time. And EPLI and cyber are probably the two worst, that the two biggest exposures exist for, in my opinion. The other one's umbrella, but I can understand, again, if you're going to go out and recommend a $5 million umbrella, people aren't necessarily going to be wild and they automatically think $5 million, that's excessive, until you have some claim scenarios and case studies you can share with them in order to help them understand. And the thing is, again, the conversation I have around this stuff is twofold. Number one, if you can't afford the premium, you certainly can't afford the claim. So why are we even having this discussion? The second piece of it is, if people want to take calculated and quantifiable risk, I'm all for it. Take as much risk as you want. Just don't self-insure for the things you can't quantify. If somebody came to me and said, I own my $500,000 house free and clear, I'm not buying homeowners anymore, I'm going to argue with him and say, probably not the wisest decision. We live in a hurricane-prone area, but if you know what you're getting into and you can quantify that you're financially able to withstand a loss like that of your residence, I'm not going to argue with you. What I am going to tell you is you at least need to make sure you have personal liability to cover any third-party things that happen on your property. Probably want to have an umbrella over top of that. But same thing with a commercial client. I don't care if you want agreed value on your building only for the amount of the SBA loan. You can calculate what that's going to be. I don't want you saying, I don't want the umbrella because you just think $5 million is too much. Take the $5 million umbrella, then put $100,000 self-insured retention in between the primary and the excess, and you're going to control the cost a little bit, but now you can take some quantifiable risk at that point. What you can't quantify is what Morgan & Morgan's going to get awarded in a settlement or a court case because you decided you didn't want to buy the limits and they go out and they sue you for everything under the sun. And now there's a judgment in place with punitive damages and you're out of luck. So you've got to counsel your clients that it's not about you selling them more limit to make more money. You actually have a fiduciary duty to do that. You have to do, and fiduciary may not be the best term. You have a duty to offer by your state, more than likely, that says you should be doing that. The other thing is, think about those accounts that are more likely to close in Q4. And I in full transparency, even though it counts towards next year, I count 1/1 in Q4 because most of the time that's what we're prospecting. But you also have to focus on what's actually closing in that last quarter of the year. And some of you guys are going to be really surprised by this, I have a feeling. But when we have our sales meeting once a month, we go through all of the renewal stuff. I don't do it every week. Sometimes if we have a bigger month, we'll do every other week. But we just want to project, where are we at? What's coming in? I don't know what the problem is. I'm sitting here telling you how to do all of this stuff, and I haven't even been able to do it for myself historically in the month of November. We have like 7 accounts that renew in November, commercial. That's it. How did that happen? When we've looked at this every single year and said, we really need to prospect more for November. We really need to prospect more for November. Well, that's not going to be an excuse this year because I'm actually assigning the leads lists and the activity to my producers to make sure that when this year rolls around, we are writing business in November. We have a massive October, and I have as much in October. I have enough in October in terms of revenue flowing to cover November and December if we didn't write anything. But November, hands down, is our worst month of the year, and December is probably our second worst month. We have to intentionally prospect to get more business on the books for November and December. It just has to happen. And what better time than in the middle of the hard market when everybody's shopping and we have a better opportunity to go out and get people to listen to us and hopefully have that first meeting. So if you're not looking at your book of business in terms of the timing and when things hit, you need to pay attention to that stuff. For the more established agencies, it's probably not as big of a deal as it used to be. But, when I was just starting out, I was literally writing business to make sure we could buy groceries the next month. So I was paying attention to every single thing that we brought in when we brought it in. And somehow I let that fall by the wayside and I own it. But I can assure you it's going to be corrected this year. There will not, we need to have triple that number of renewals in November, and we have all the strategies to do it. I don't know if when football season kicks in, people get lazy, whether it's back to school or now all of a sudden, you've got Halloween and all of the stuff that you deal with your kids for fall festivals at church and at school, and then Thanksgiving's coming up. Maybe people just get lazy in their prospecting, but my numbers tell me, based on the number of prospects I've found, that there's plenty of people who renew in the month. We just haven't been reaching out to them or calling on them. I think it's really important to look at that. You may find trends when you do that in industries that have more stuff renew in the fourth quarter too. I can tell you that when you're dealing with a government contractor or you're dealing with a software company, the likelihood of them renewing 1/1 is not as high as it is for them to renew on 3/1 or 10/1, because those companies are negotiating their own service agreements and their contracts to renew, and they do those on a calendar year. So many times the insurance doesn't happen then because they've deferred it to when they have more time to focus on those things. So you'll see that those things are going to be a 3/1 or a 10/1 are the top two that I've seen here in Florida. And then the third one is June in terms of the numbers for those classes of business. If you're focusing on workers' comp and you see that a lot of the people that you're talking to are HR professionals and HR handles comp, in addition to the benefits, there's a high likelihood that there's a split date because the comp is probably going to renew on 1/1 because that's when the HR person's handling the benefits renewal a lot of the time. And so now you can prospect that way, knowing that there's another time of the year that the package and the other lines are likely going to be renewing because the CFO is trying to get year end wrapped up and they'd rather push out to another date so they don't have too many things they're dealing with on their plate. The other thing that I think needs to really happen going into fourth quarter is leveraging your existing relationships and making sure you're talking to your clients about referrals. If we've done a good job for people, it should never be weird for us to ask them to refer us to other people that they know in the industry or that are in their role. CFOs roll with other CFOs. I know because they have active groups on LinkedIn that I've tried to get into and I can't because I'm not a CFO, but they have not trade associations, but there's CFO networks that meet in person in a lot of places. Ask them, period. You want to make sure that you're asking them for referrals of other people that you could help just like you help them. If you didn't bring any value to the table and all you did was shop the insurance, probably not going to have as good of a success rate as if you've actually gone in and you've cleaned up a mess and you fixed things for somebody and you've maintained what you said you were going to do and actually executed it. But you need to have a cadence of how often you're doing that. I'm not saying you need to be popping in to a CFO's office once a month and asking if they have any referrals this month, but I don't think if you flagged it to follow up twice a year or even every 4 months, maybe not every quarter, but every 4 months, you're hitting them 3 times a year. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If they give you 1 or 2 every single time and you have them give an introduction for you as opposed to just a name and a number, those are really high intent opportunities in most cases. And if they're not high intent when you get in initially after the first meeting, if you've done your homework and you had your scripting right, they become very high intent because they come with a perceived level of trust because you've already demonstrated what you can do for their friend, and their friend is the one who referred you in. If you don't have a strategy for talking to your existing clients about referrals, and I'm not talking about automating it, I'm talking about picking up the phone and calling your contact and saying, look, we're trying to build some like for me, I'm trying to build some business in November. I've got these 4 accounts. It looks to me like you're connected with them on LinkedIn. It looks like you may be in the Bay Area Manufacturers Association with them. Of these 4, who were the top 2? I wouldn't ever ask you to call 4 of them for me or introduce me to 4 of them, but I would like at least 2 of them. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to give you all 4 anyhow, but you don't look like you're being self-serving by asking for 4. Tell them, give them 4 names, tell them to pick the best 2, and they're still going to do 4 of them for you. So, but go in and do that. Know who these people are. Look to see where they're connected with them on social and be specific in it. If you leave it up to them as to who they think or who they know, it's a much more difficult process than you finding out, hey, you're connected to this person. Would you mind making an intro? So I think that's another area that a lot of us have the ability to work going into fourth quarter. The other thing is, if you've not invested in building your referral network, you can be doing that too. How many people do you think these just absolute ravenous payroll salespeople are calling on going into January 1st? This is their busiest time of the year. This is the best time for you to be making sure you have at least 1 and probably 2 or 3 different payroll companies in your back pocket that you're using for referrals, because they work harder in fourth quarter than they work the rest of the year combined. This is where they make President's Club or they don't. So if you can have them going out and referring, or meeting with prospects for them that you ultimately can help them land, and I'll explain that in a second, you should have a few of them that you're working with right now, because it's gravy for you. It's a really easy way for you to get open opportunities without you having to knock on the door or make the phone call. Depending on where you're at, PEOs and leasing companies are going to be more prevalent in some places than others. But if somebody's in a PEO in a payroll company wants to go and bring that business on, they need you to place the workers' comp for them so that they can break the PEO relationship and get the payroll deal done. I don't deal with payroll companies that have the ability to place comp in-house because I'm of no use for them. You'll find out really quickly if you do have those people as referral partners, it's adverse selection for you. You're only going to get the stuff they can't place in their own workers' comp program, which is why ADP is not a good referral source for us, because everybody we get's a roofer or a framer that is got no experience in just starting the company in year 1. That's not a good prospect for me. So you want to make sure that you're dealing with people that are going to give you good stuff, because they don't have the ability to solve the problem on their own. But number 2, I think it's also really, really important that we do a good job of coaching these people and training them for what it is that we want from them. You can't complain about referrals you're getting if you've never outlined the parameters of what it is that's a good prospect for you. And we tend to go into the mode where we make excuses. Well, I wrote that because my referral partner sent it to me and I didn't want to offend my referral partner. Well, if your referral partner is only sending you garbage, why is it okay to write garbage? Go back to your referral partner and explain what a lead is that doesn't look like garbage, and tell them that's what you need. I can understand an exception every now and again, but I hear from too many agents across the board that say the same thing. Well, I don't want to upset the referral relationship. Well, how healthy is the referral relationship if everything they send you is not your ideal prospect? It's not. So it's not even a good referral relationship. You probably shouldn't be in it to begin with.